Yeah, and the Queen of Heaven is a title for the chief female goddess. So Sophia in Gnosticism would be a Queen of Heaven. Osiris's consort, I won't say the name so it doesn't get taken down, would be a Queen of Heaven. And that consort of Baal would be a Queen of Heaven. Before the flood, Gaia with Kronos versus Zeus's consort would also be a Queen of Heaven. So the offspring gods just inherited all of those. So Lilith is also considered a Queen of Heaven. Inanna is a Queen of Heaven. Ashtaroth, they're all queens of heaven. Just which pantheon are they in? And were they before or after the flood?
The Codega is a guide and a storyteller, escorting you through the night, lighting the way, warding off thieves, ghosts, demons, and other oddities. Along the journey, his companions would often share with him the most curious of stories that he'd record in his codex. Perhaps you just might find yourself traveling with the Codega and sharing one of yours. Welcome back, everyone, to Codega's Codex of Curiosities. I'm Rye the Codega, and tonight I have returning guest Gary Wayne. This is his third time back, and this conversation, probably one of my top 5 conversations I've had on this show to date. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and we hit a lot of topics. We talked about the rapture, the end times, of course, the Nephilim, the giants, the mark of the beast, the Antichrist. We even tackled the 3-eye atlas, and that was a very interesting conversation where we talked about it. And I'm not sure if Gary really heard about it yet, but after I gave him just the name, he was able to give me a lot of information back. And this is one that you don't want to miss. So I want you guys to stay tuned. I hope you guys enjoy this, because I really did. And if you do enjoy it, share the show. That is the biggest way that helps me, is if you guys share the show, like it, comment, let me know what your favorite part of this episode was. And if you're enjoying Gary, and by all means, please go check out his website, his books. Fantastic. All right, everyone, let's just get right into it now. All right, so I want to welcome back Gary Wayne. Gary, we've had a couple episodes already together where we talked about the pantheon of gods. We talked about, the ancient bloodlines as well of these giants of the Nephilim. And, we dabbled in the Elohim, the Raphaim. And but today, I think I want to bring it up into the present times. This is where we are right now. And I would love to give people that edge to get some information where we are with everything. Also, are we moving towards these end times? And I think everybody knows who you are, Gary, but before we go too far, why don't you just give everybody a little bit of a shout out and where they can find you as well?
Yeah, so I don't think everybody knows who I am, so it's always good to introduce myself. And if you're not familiar with me or my work, I'm an author. I've authored 2 books called The Genesis 6 Conspiracy, Part 1 and Part 2. And I'm a Christian contrarian. And what I mean by that is I don't accept what somebody says is true unless I verify it myself. I don't accept what somebody says is written somewhere or says or means something. I want to be able to get to the bottom because I want to know why I believe what I believe. So you can't obviously do it 100% of the time, but as much as you can do it, that's what you want to do. And for anything I do in my research, that's the approach that I take. And I take that whether it's biblical or non-biblical, hold it to the same standard. Because I'm looking for the consistency as well in terms of not only the biblical testimony, but the global testimonies, and to see how that matches up so we can better understand where we came from, how we got here today, and where we're going. Because it's a common story all the way through. there are nuances to it. You have the global testimony, that's a polytheist lens, and you have a secular lens, which is an extension out of the polytheist lens once you really dig into things. And then there's the monotheist lens, and they describe the same events in prehistory just through those different cultural and religious lenses.
I just want to touch on what you said. I think it's extremely important that we, don't believe everything we told until you've done your own research. I think it is extremely important, especially now these days when there's so many people out there telling you what to believe or what to do. And especially like you have like celebrities telling you, you should do this, you should follow me. And it almost seems like almost like a form of worship in a way, like where we're talking about the Nephilim or the Watchers in this day and age. I almost believe that they're taking that role in that aspect of it.
Well, I think a lot of times they're channeling that type of message, whether or not it's a direct channel or a belief system that they're communicating. So, and they're stars, right? Angels, gods are stars. So,
Interesting. Yes.
yeah,
Why didn't I put that together? It's like,
yeah,
okay, yes, yeah.
yeah. It's like Paramount on a mountain has 23 stars around it. That's right out of the Book of Enoch. So, um, so anyways, there's a lot of connections to Hollywood and that, but yeah, so know what is being communicated to us and dig deeper so you can fully understand what you want to believe. And it helps us to understand where we are today and what's going on today. If you can see the lens of history and prehistory, you're going to see the same forces at work today. You just have been brainwashed not to recognize it and prepared not to recognize it. And there's a similar destiny, let's call it, instead of fate, there's similar destiny in all of the religions and cultures around the world that we would know as the new age or the end time from a Christian perspective. And they're very, very similar, but similar events, a little different outcome. And now those are going to be big outcomes but the narrative is not all that different. And so you have to be able to understand the different narratives so that you can understand what you want to believe and not just sort of be like a lemming and going along with the rest of the flock. So make your own decisions is what I would suggest on that. And so I apply that to my research. And one of the things I also try and do is do something other people don't do. Um,
That's usually the smart thing to do.
Yeah, well, I used to do a lot of teaching in my corporate job, as well as a lot of other functions. And to be successful, I used to tell people you have to do what unsuccessful people don't do.
Okay, I like that. That's an interesting take. Yeah, I like it.
So what I do is I break some of the rules. I give too much information. I give too much detail, whether it's in my writings or in I talk. But I want people to know whatever they take away is you can say I can agree or disagree, but he understands what he's talking about, and he's got a basis for what he's talking about. And then what I do is, and I wish more people would do this in their books and their research, is I just don't do footnotes and endnotes. I give you the sources, and even if I'm paraphrasing, there's a footnote there, and you can go check the source. So you can check the veracity of what I'm saying, because it's about getting information out. And I'm not here to convert people to become Christian or any other religion. I'm only here I hope you do. I hope people do become Christians. I certainly do. But I want people to understand what our common history is and where the world is going. But I just want to provide information for you, as in the audience, to help you make decisions and maybe open your eyes a little bit to how this world works. And you can't know how today works if you don't know what happened before that.
I agree. And, I did want to talk about today, but I do want to touch on something before we move past this is, telling people. One of the biggest things that I do on the show is to tell people or try to inform people or give them tidbits of knowledge as to what our real history was, because it is all covered up. It is, and even physically covered up as well. And it's like, what is the point of erasing the past? Is it to control the narrative, or what is the bottom line reason as to why our past is so convoluted, even though they tell us, no, this is exactly what happened. But when you look back, you're like, things don't line up.
Yeah, it's a very, very good question, and it's not a simple answer. The
Of
concept of
course.
what they're doing is control.
Yeah.
And then the other question is, well, who's they? But sticking with the they first, our system, both before the flood and after the flood, in all cultures, all religions, all around the world, existing even to this day, was established on a four-class system. You had a class that was the governing class, the royals. You have also part of that governing class, the generals and the officers of the military forces. Also, as part of the upper classes, and as you start to move into the second class, is they control all of the religions with their priests and their hierarchy.
Okay.
Doesn't matter, monotheist, polytheist, they control it. Because only until recent times could you become, even in the Christian church, you weren't going to become a minister unless you were educated. Well, if you weren't part of the top two classes, you weren't going to get educated. So that's the class they also hold, is all of the knowledge and all of the history and all of the arts. So they control everything, including the building and the architecture. And then you have the bottom two classes. The second class is mostly the oligarch class, which people are starting to hear that term more often. That's an ancient system where only a few of the royals operated all the large companies. If you're from Canada, that would be like the Hudson Bay Company. If you were towards in England or towards India, you might say the East Indian Trading Company. Anything that was large business was controlled by the royals and their larger bloodline family. And they're the only ones that were educated. And so the third class would be made up of bakers, tailors, blacksmiths, small skill level to do the things that the upper class didn't want to do to serve them. And so it's a small entrepreneurial class that we would recognize as our, a free enterprise today, but distinct from the corporations, which is the modern form of oligarchy.
Yeah. Okay.
Controlled by the big money. And so they control all of the major business, and they let a small group that serves them well to eke out a living. And then the bottom class is the labor class. And as you go further back, also where the slaves and the ritual class came from. What do I mean by ritual class? Sacrifices.
That's what I was thinking. That I was like, the ritual class, yes, probably sacrifices. Yes.
Yeah, I like to say that because people are going. It starts to resonate in terms of how this thing is
I'm
all
gonna
set
guess
up.
like sacrifice doesn't mean like, oh, you're up on the temple, like an Aztec temple being sacrificed. I'm also thinking it'll be like soldiers put out to war as sacrifices in
Yeah,
that instance
like
as well.
the foot soldiers,
Yeah.
because the nobility, the Aryans, and Aryan means nobility, the noble ones.
Okay.
They weren't going to be fodder. They rode the chariots. They were the archers. They're the ones that were back and weren't in the muck until they could ride in with the chariots or the horses and clean up. So you need the foot soldiers, and it's like a chessboard. Well, chessboard gives you their belief system with the dualist system, black and white, the checkerboard of the Masonic halls, the pawns, which are the humans, and all the players in the back are part of the nobility class. And it represents things coming down through history. We don't have time to go through the chess allegories, but just to sort of give an understanding of what people are talking about. And we can see this even still in place today, like in India or in any third world nation or on First Nations in North America. Most people don't know it's still a bloodline four-class system there. And the religious classes, typically in the more tribal communities or more nomad communities, would be, the priest class, the shaman class. So and they're all bloodline. And then you have the bottom two classes. So, and again, when you have the warriors don't come from the lower two classes. It's part of the Nephilim class. It's part of the royal class. It's part of the royals. So it's the same system all over the world. We would recognize that as the feudal system in Europe. And this is the system that they would want to bring back. And so they've been able to control this world through this system because they control all the money. They control all the resources. They own all of the land. England, at a certain point before, up until World War II, was a classic model of how you would set up a nation for the royals, where 1% of the population owned 99% of the land.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I was also thinking, I just want to go back to the foot soldiers or the pawns, so to speak,
Yep.
I would assume, such as like lotteries or every now and then there is one that will rise up, and that will keep everybody in this sense of like, oh, if I work hard enough or if I do good enough,
Yes.
I could rise up out of here. And it keeps everybody working well in a well-oiled system then.
Yeah. In a properly run organizational structure, you would selectively pick people to be winners.
Yeah.
And have them do a little bit better and maybe get up one class level, but it doesn't go beyond that generation, though.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. All right. Let's go back to, let's continue on with this. Yeah.
So they've controlled how the history's been written. And we've heard the term history's written by the victors. Well, it doesn't really matter which side won because it's the same group and they have the war gene in them. And they're going to write a similar biased history to it, but it's still the history of the nobility. And it's as simple as that. And so if you are outnumbered significantly because humans populate more easily than the royals do, and that's been the case since the flood, not before the flood, but after the flood, particularly with the lack of female production that was out of the original giants, which is why they had to intermarry with humans lest they go extinct. You need to be able to control the information to keep them in line, because at any point in time, they could overwhelm you just in numbers. Yes, it would be a brutal, bloody war, but you would be overwhelmed. And so they have to control the mob, just as Rome used different methods to control the mob. But it's the same ideology. And I just use that because people would be more familiar with, like, giving the mob the games at the Colosseum, for example, and keep their minds occupied.
Yeah.
Kind of have that today with our entertainment and our sports and things like that. Same tactics, different ways of applying it. And so they also don't want us to know who they actually are. Because if we knew who they were, we would rise up and overthrow them.
I'm saying that as well. It's like, yeah. And the faces, I believe the faces that we see, like the that represent, we think this is, this is the evil, this is this person. I don't think we truly actually see the ones pulling all the strings. I think they're hidden much further back. They're behind that all.
Anything in the modern 200 or 300 years, we only see who they want us to see. And if you can see them like the Rothschilds, they're important, but they're not part of the 13 families, so to speak, for the West. So that's how they like to work, as even though they're visible ones, the offspring, descendants, and royals, Roy as in king, French, and Al as in angel or a god, as in Baal, Lord God, kings of God. Rex Deus is the Latin term that they would use, kings of God. They have their loyalty to a specific celestial mafia godfather, patriarchal angel that founded their bloodline. So when King Charles III took the ancient rite, and this is an ancient rite that goes right back to the start of the post-Diluvian world, and likely the same rituals that were used before the flood, he's swearing an oath to a god, not a god of the Bible, but a god of the Council of the Gods.
I have been saying this all along when people are like, oh, like at the Grammys, we're talking like the stars when they're like, I want to thank God. I've been saying, they're thanking God. We're assuming it's the one and only God, but
Yeah.
no, I
They're
don't believe it
thanking the
is.
God that they worship.
Exactly. That's
Yes.
exactly it. It's like, thank this God or that God. We don't
Yeah.
know who their intention is. We're just making an assumption.
Yeah. And so they control the information and they only want you to know so much, but they believe they're superior. They called themselves demigods. I was just watching the latest Viking series, and I noticed they were calling the kings the bloodline of Odin. Um, in and they called themselves demigods. So we're starting to see that language come back in terms of how the royals would look at them. And so, what's a demigod? That's the offspring defined in ancient times as the offspring of a god and a human female, or a goddess and a human male. And they were given the divine right to rule at the Council of the Gods. And the Council of the Gods is in all cultures all around the world. Everybody recognizes that. These
Yeah,
things are not coincident.
what they don't recognize is this Council of the Gods. We see it all in these different cultures, but it's pretty much one and the same. It's just different interpretations, different names
Yeah,
given to these different gods. But
yeah.
in my opinion, I believe they're all the same. It's the same one. Just
It is. Whether or not it's Osiris in Egypt, that's the same as Zeus. That's the same as Baal. Those are offspring gods ruling after the flood. So you could go El in the Canaanite pantheon before the flood is the parent of Baal. Ra is the parent of Osiris. Kronos is the parent of Zeus. And it's the same story. All of them overthrew the parent gods to take power, and they killed them. But you can't kill an immortal, so that's an allegory. That's part of how they do their history. It's the mythopoetic style. It's the classic writing styles. The
so.
history is in
I,
there, but
I
they
do have
create a story with it.
a question. So Zeus is a Nephilim or is a fallen angel?
He's a fallen one. Yeah, he's an
Okay,
angel.
okay,
He's a god. Yeah,
yeah.
he's an in history he's the son of Zeus and a consort, right? So from
Okay.
two gods. So, but that again, that's just an allegory part. It's not that they didn't have the power as the chief of the gods. They're just creating a narrative to put it into. And only at the adept level in polytheism do you understand these allegories. So they think they're superior because they come as demigods with the divine right to rule this earth, and the council of gods rule over this earth, at least for a little time longer. And so they think that they're more intelligent, and they are very intelligent. They have an average IQ higher than the average human does, but they're not like supermen, right? But they used to be like Superman. And what's interesting about Superman, just I don't know whether I've said this on the show's past, but Clark Kent's not his name. Kal-El is his name. If you recognize the AL at the end or the EL at the end,
Mm-hmm.
that should be a bit of a hint. He's from the house of El. His father is Jor-El. And El is the parent god of the Canaanite pantheon. And Nimrod, who became a mighty one, that word became is Kal-El. None of that is coincidence. um,
Super. There is so many of these ties into pop culture. It really is to try to you look at all these movies. It's about these. We'll say like the Nephilim or the fallen ones, but it's reconstructed in a different way so that we cheer for them, that we
yes,
are, they're the heroes. Well, they
yes.
are the men of renown.
Well,
Yeah.
yes. Well, they're heroes of old and they're superheroes today. So, um, all of the heroes in the superhero movies are based on ancient times. Some of them even use the names like Thor.
Yeah, exactly. We're not
Yeah,
gonna. We're not even hiding it. It's like, here we go. Just
yeah,
bring in
yeah,
Thor. Yeah.
yeah. And so they're all based on what was before, and they're just preparing people for the super race to make a return. Um, and so we need to understand that history. And they know they can do things in plain sight because we're not educated in understanding the writing styles, the entertainment styles, and the allegories and the symbols that are in there. But the royals are initiated with that from childhood. So they'll watch a movie, they'll take a whole different story away because the real story is in the allegories. And the characters are real, based on ancient figures, and the belief system is real, and what they're trying to accomplish is real. But yet, most people don't recognize it. So when I'm watching a lot of entertainment, I'm looking for what are they really trying to tell us here.
Is there any movie in particular that you really noticed a message that maybe was overlooked?
Oh, I think there's a lot of movies.
I do. You know, like I guess there's one in particular that I always allude to, but I think the message is pretty straightforward. If you ever seen the movie called Dark City, this is quite a interesting movie where they've taken a section of human population, put it on this rock, and they're genetically modifying, trying to create a human that they can that this species can become intermingled with a human,
Yep.
and they're manipulating memories.
Yep.
They're trying to create this, and it's a fascinating film.
Yeah, and that's exactly what goes on with interdimensional kidnapping of people to do experimentation on, usually for gene renewal, but all sorts of different reasons that you could have within that sort of agenda. So all of their imagery is out there all the time. All the architecture tells you the history. All of the things that they name in science tells you their history and their belief system. And when you go through university, you're in a degree system.
Yeah,
That's polytheism,
fair enough.
initiatory societies. And you get dressed up in a black garb for graduation like you were a member of the Mithraism religion or Zoroastrianism, which would be the older religion, or a Cathar, the more modern version of the black robes. And you get this diploma with a seal on it. That's a legal document that you've completed your initiation.
I've I've never even questioned that. I was just like, there's so many things when you start, like you bring up, and I'm like, wait, that's kind of weird. That's why do we do that? And
Yeah.
no matter how, I don't want to see like awake to everything I am. There's always so much more that just slides on by, and it's like I start to see more and more. But there's so much. Like you said, it's everything.
Yeah, and they've dumbed us down, and we live in their world. We just don't understand it,
Yeah, yeah.
and that's why you need to learn more and make decisions for yourself. So they control the information, and they want more information to come out as we get closer to the end time, because they're trying to bring about their complete agenda. And so, as things heat up, if we're in the end time, and I think that we are, we're going to see a closer model of what true reality is as they present it. We'll never get the whole clear story, just like we'll never get full disclosure on aliens.
I think that's such a distraction, such a joke. They're like, we're going to do disclosure, and then we're going to give you these little tidbits here and there, and
Yeah.
everybody just sits and waits. Like, okay,
Yes.
what now? And it's never going to happen. It's not.
Yeah. Not. They're not going to give us the whole truth and
No.
what the agenda is and how they're working with these aliens and whatever they are. And there's different levels of aliens, so it's quite a complex organizational structure with that aspect of it. So yeah, so that's what they're trying to do, and the only way that they can get to where they want to be is they need to do two things. They need to try and ensure humanity doesn't reach our destiny to be raised up like angels, and then to judge the angels for the crimes that they did against us in the future time, and or they want to be able to have a realm on their own. Okay, so let's go to the entertainment to show a little bit of what I'm talking about. And there's lots of different models, but this one was the starkest for me. The first movie in Doctor Strange, you have this dark Lord of the Universe. That's the God of the Bible, who's imprisoning. He controls everything else except for this earth, which is a beacon of light and enlightenment that's dominated by these polytheist religions, right? And that they're going through portals and they're doing all sorts of magic and technology and stuff like that. And they're not saying they want to defeat the evil God of the universe. They just want to win a treaty where they can live in a realm on their own on the earth.
Oh, wow.
So that's what they want to do. And to be able to do that, you have to make sure that the inheritors of the earth would not be here and that they would totally rebel against this God of the universe, and that they could show between that rebellion a justification for their own rebellion, and that they would be able to live outside the reach of God with a negotiated treaty. So Satan never says he wants to kill God. That's left for Antichrist and Antichrist wannabes. They're the ones who get blood on their hands, not the fallen angels. And because they know how powerful God is. But that Satan wanted to be like God, to rule over his own realm, but away from God. And we see that in Isaiah 14. So that if we understand what the various groups, who they are, and then what the motivations are, we have to separate the angelic realm or the gods from their offspring. The offspring are just tools.
Okay. They're just tools for the to
for the fallen
fulfill
angels.
the ends. Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That's deep and disturbing as well. That like their offspring are just tools to orchestrate this treaty. And that makes a lot of sense. I'm gonna have to go watch Doctor Strange again and kind of like flip
Look
it
at it from
yes, like
look at it from a
invert
different point of view. Yeah.
yes, invert it and see it from that angle.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, in fairness, the fallen angels are lying to their followers, their offspring, and those who follow them, that saying that they can win. But they're also telling them that whether it's Shiva or Mithra, this is the god of destruction that comes at the beginning of the age of Aquarius that destroys the world by fire and then regenerates the earth through that fire to start anew again. And again, we have that same story, slightly different outcome for the end time biblically. And so what the offspring of the gods and the descendants believe is that they'll be like a phoenix rising out of the ashes of this earth. And that this new world, and within their spirit form, because their bodies aren't going to survive this, but their spirits, disembodied spirits of the giants, will be given new bodies in this new world to live with their gods in this world separated from the God of the universe. So that's what they're selling their followers and their offspring.
And so this is what so they're definitely pushing for the end times. It's they want to take over the world to have it excluded from God's reach, kind of thing, like you said.
And to control the forces of the universe, they need a universal religion and a universal government that they can tap into, using everybody, all of that unlimited knowledge through the Atma particle that sends information through dimensions instantaneously through quantum entanglement. And it's something you can't measure. It's an invisible particle that you can measure. And this is a concept where this world will require not just a universal religion and a world government to tap into other dimensions for all of this knowledge, but also they need that harmonization to create a vibration to evolve to another level of consciousness, whatever that is, in preparation for this new world.
See, this is something we hear a lot. It's like, we're going to hit 5D, we're going to elevate our consciousness. We're going to elevate this. And is this a deceitful move to try to get everybody to bring about the world, the end, the end of the world?
The only way you can have one individual ruling the whole world, the way the world works today, is you have to have this technology in place.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So they have to get there. Right. And that's going to be, the dragon messiah, a Pendragon, so to speak. And so that's the Antichrist, as we understand that from a Christian perspective. So that needs to all be in place. And then Antichrist is going to, wage war. He's actually going to be able to go into heaven and throw down some of the starry host. And and who can make war with somebody like that?
Right. I've had this theory, okay, that the hybrids, the experimentation on humans by aliens, or whatever the aliens truly are, whether they be demons or anything like that, or the fallen, I believe, and I've talked to, I don't know if you know Fringe. So she talked about how she was been abducted and her soul was removed from her body. My theory is these experimentations are so that they can actually create a body with a soul that can also house a disembodied, like a Nephilim, as well. What that can do then is like a entrance key into heaven. That is their way into there by, it's like, okay, we have their back door now because we have this, we have a body with a soul, and now you can pass through.
Yeah. And how it should be sort of understood, you don't hear the word spirit too often.
Okay.
But you hear soul.
Yes.
And two different concepts.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So when you're talking about the Nephilim somehow merging, that's the disembodied spirit that comes from the fallen angels with their immortal spirits, was reproduced and passed on. So the spirit, typically from a human perspective, comes from heaven. And then we go to sleep when we die, and the spirit goes back to heaven in that sleep state until the resurrection that we're slated for is to occur. And then we'll receive new bodies and a new soul. So in the New Testament, we're introduced to the concept of a spirit, soul, and body. Three portions. The spirits of heaven. Of the physical world is the soul and the body. And the spirit merges with the soul to create the mind that we have. But the soul doesn't go back to heaven. The soul is of the physical world. So they're offering godhood in the physical world, just as giants were originally created immortal. That's what they're trying to get back to, that state they would label as Eden. And they kind of get there because they look at giants not just being created in Genesis 6, but also through Adam and Eve in Eden, particularly Eve.
Okay.
But when you have, and the reason why I include Adam in there, just again, this is not biblical, but Adam's consort, according to the mystical part of Judaism, where they bring this back with them from Babylon in their 7-year exile, has a consort named Lilith. Lilith is like the two characters. I kind of go back and forth, but I'm kind of settling on two. One is a queen of heaven, so a god.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one is more of a demigod.
I've just heard the Queen of Heaven recently on Tony show, The Confessionals, where they were going into that. So
yeah, and the Queen of Heaven is a title for the chief female goddess. So Sophia in Gnosticism would be a Queen of Heaven. Osiris's consort, I won't say the name so it doesn't get taken down, would be a Queen of Heaven. And that consort of Baal would be a Queen of Heaven. Before the flood, Gaia with Kronos versus Zeus's consort would also be a Queen of Heaven. So the offspring gods just inherited all of those. So Lilith is also considered a Queen of Heaven. Inanna is a Queen of Heaven. Ashtaroth, they're all queens of heaven, just which pantheon are they in, and were they before or after the flood?
It's a title. So it's not
It's a title.
one individual, but it's a title that's kind of passed on.
Yeah. In every pantheon. And it's an allegory of the highest original female consort to Satan. Just as Osiris, when you look at the lowest level of secret societies with Freemasonry that has adepthood in it, they like to use the Egyptian pantheon. So you have Osiris, the consort, and Horus. And Osiris is an allegory for Satan within the mysteries of Freemasonry. And so Ra, before the flood, would have been an allegory for Satan. And so the same goes for the female goddess.
Okay.
But with the consort of Satan.
It makes a lot of sense, and it's very interesting, a very interesting topic. Now, there's so much where I want to keep going with this. So when you were talking, I want to go back to when you were talking about the Antichrist or of sorts. When you mentioned that the dragon of that they would have to have some sort of technology to pull everybody in. What do you think that technology could be? Where are we headed with that? Is that AI? Is that something Elon Musk is devising, or?
Well, it's kind of all of that. And the thing to understand is the beast system that's coming with the Antichrist. We're going to see models of that are similar before. And then we get a completely new level when Antichrist destroys Babylon, which has a system that is the basis for the Antichrist beast system. And so this is a combination of having in place interdimensional capability, so quantum computing, so you can AI, so you can search in multiple dimensions and in multiple locations in each dimension at the same time, looking for this Atma particle or the divine essence, as the New Age would call it. And you would also have to have a digital currency that can work in multiple dimensions, but also be secure from other dimensions so that the royals don't lose all of their wealth, because that's how they control things. And so we see those things all being developed. They're starting to merge, but again, we're a long ways away. So when we see the beast system, nobody can buy or sell without having the mark, the chip, whatever it's going to be, right? And so this is a technological AI system, and there's an image of the beast that can have people killed for not taking this mark. So, and this is an idol in ancient terms. It's an image. And it's the image of Antichrist, who's declared himself to be God in the Holy Temple of Jerusalem in the end time, at the midpoint of the last 7 years. And he implements the mark of the beast after destroying Babylon.
And that's the third temple, right? The third temple that still needs to be built, correct?
I would say yes and no to that. I'm thinking it's an extension on the existing Muslim al-Mosque temple that's there, because in Daniel 9:27, when Antichrist, who's not Antichrist yet at this point in time, negotiates the covenant for the last 7 years, he permits the sacrifice of the Jewish people to begin on an overspreading, an extremity, or a wing of the temple, depending on which translation that you're reading there. And
by the sacrifice, you're talking the red heifer then, correct?
Well, that would be what would introduce the age of the Messianic period.
Okay.
So that would be probably the first sacrifice they would want to do there. But it would have to be in the Holy of Holies, the original, where it was with the first and second temple. So on a wing suggests it's branching away from the current temple that's there, or it's a wing of a new temple to be built. I think this is going to happen too quickly, and that you need a universal religion in place first to make sure that this is going to happen, right?
That's what I was thinking. You join them two together. You join it all together, and then they can be allowed.
Yes, then it can be allowed. But again, making an accommodation for them to be able to do the sacrifice. So when we look at the location of where the temple is, there's the Temple Mount, but it's where the Holy of Holies was located within the smaller temple from the Temple Mount. And Josephus left the description where it was located, and it was more towards the valley where the Holy of Holies was located. So it doesn't have to be actually in the Muslim mosque. And now a wing of the temple, build on an adjoining or a hall or whatever, rampway can be done where the Holy of Holies and everybody's kind of satisfied, even under the universal religion. So, yeah, I do think that it's important to understand what it takes to be able to get to this point. I mean, universal religions is a big ask. Universal government is a big ask.
Yes.
Sacrificing where the Muslim mosque is today is a big ask. So those things have to be somehow sort of brought together to make that happen.
Now, hear me out on this one. Okay, I have a theory,
but I didn't finish on the,
Please
where
go.
I was going on the image. So this is a talking idol.
Okay,
because it speaks, right?
Okay.
And so, and it's an exact image of Antichrist. So some sort of technological hologram or something like that. Something, be a new type of technology. So nothing is new under the sun. What was will be again. And the understanding of this only brings grief and sorrow. And you have a similar adage that's in polytheism as well. I quoted Ecclesiastes 1. We have talking idols in the Old Testament. And what's interesting is that these are also known as family idols. They're called teraphim. Now, the word teraphim, as it's translated into the KJV Bible, is this talking idol, but not every time teraphim is used is it translated as teraphim. Sometimes it just says idol. For some reason, the KJV translators didn't want to be consistent, but they did that in a lot of areas. So I guess it's consistently inconsistent. So it's a talking family idol. And typically, this was a hero, as in the disembodied spirit of a giant that would embed a family or a tribe that were it ruled from, and they used to have to sacrifice to them in hero worship to pacify this disembodied spirit who isn't in Hades, didn't make it there, and was causing all sorts of grief. And so it was set up in a household as a shrine, and they could communicate with it because it would talk to them. Maybe tell them about the future and maybe get it right if they're lucky. So this is a word that is rooted in another interesting word, which is Rapha for Raphaim. Okay, so Rapha 7495 means to heal. It just as the Raphaim were healers in the Ugaritic text. They could heal themselves and they could heal others. Okay. 7495 is a source word for 7496 for Rapha, which is a demon spirit or an evil spirit, as a spirit of the dead that roams. It's also the source word for 7497 for the word giant, and it's a source word for teraphim. They're all interrelated. So these are demonic beings that are somehow found this oikotarian, which means habitation, or a house, a dwelling place for the spirit, as it's understood in its Greek definition, a dwelling place for the spirit. Somehow they had a technology after the flood that could house a demon spirit that could communicate. Well, we have demons that show up in Revelation quite often, and demons even come out of the mouth of Antichrist. And you could translate that as the demon comes out of the mouth to do the command of Antichrist, or he just commands through his mouth the demons. Now, in the technology that we get in the AI that's being developed. They have visible algorithms and what they call in their jargon invisible ones. Notice the language consistency. Invisible gods, visible offspring. In this case, these invisible algorithms are in behind and they're guiding the agenda of the algorithm, but you can't see it. It's secreted. And then the jargon for that is daemon algorithms.
Yeah, I heard that before. Yes.
Yeah, you can't make this stuff up as they're doing these developments. And now you have this technology that has to be some sort of advanced quantum AI technology with other things that can control digital currency and everything else, and the ability to watch everybody on the earth through the mark and identify people just as you would tap into other systems to track down people today. This would be far more advanced, far more efficient to take them and do what to them? Behead them, which is very strange. Why beheaded? Well, beheading is something that was done to make sure a giant stayed dead. And it was the worst death you could suffer as a royale, because you wouldn't get to go to where your gods are. You would either go to the pit prison if you're a terrible one or wander the earth, but you wouldn't be able to be going to the other world to be with the gods and the other demons that apparently made it there. So why would you behead humans? Well, because there's a lot of bloodlines who are going to be upset around the world because there can only be one house of dragon that's ruling the world, and then closely associated ones. So you're going to have rivals even when Antichrist takes power. And Antichrist is going to have many rivals. We're told there's going to be multiple Antichrists in the end time, all trying to be the ultimate Antichrist. So if they're not going to take the mark of the beast because they don't want to be part of that system, they want to be the ones that rule. The intention to kill is to kill the disembodied or the descendants of the giants, or giants, if there's new ones that are created or show up somehow, that they're going to stay dead.
Wow. Okay. This is super intense. So all these families are going to, have I don't know, a one person that will rise up for them, that'll be their suitor of sorts, or something like that. And he
Yeah.
will, and that's when you're saying there'll be these multiple antichrists because they're all going to be vying for this position.
Yeah. And I'll just sort of clarify that a little bit
please.
more, but I also wanted to mention that humans who refuse to take the mark, they're going to be resurrected before the year of the Lord's wrath, and they're shown in heaven resurrected in Revelation 15:3 and 4. So that's a different outcome for those who are human and are giving the testimony of Jesus, who weren't taken in rapture before that. Or resurrected before that. So, because they were still alive, obviously, until they were killed with the beheading. So, with Antichrist, as he's rising, after he negotiates the 7-year covenant, he begins a 3.5-year rise to power. Comes to power at the midpoint of the last 7 years, crowns himself as God in the temple, implements the mark of the beast, destroys Babylon, and he receives his power from the 10 kings who are ruling with Babylon before that in the world government. So there are 10 bloodlines ruling 10 empires before that. Now, Antichrist is going to overthrow 3 and then replace it with his own people, because by implication and inference, because there's 10 kings that are going to be ruling underneath him to run the world. But he's going to be like Satan sitting atop the council of the gods. He's sitting atop the council of the 10 kings ruling the world. And so, but there will also be other ones that, because there was hundreds of angels that created bloodlines that aren't going to be part of this 10 and haven't ennobled themselves through psioning and grafting in of bloodlines to be part of that. So there could be a lot of ones that Antichrist just wants eliminated because they're just considered rivals.
Do you believe that all this DNA harvesting of sorts or sampling is part of that agenda, like that.
It
I
is.
think it's like 21andMe or something. Like there's those DNA people where you send in your DNA to find my my bloodlines, my like my ancestors. Could that be something along that line of like the agenda of, okay, let's
It's
find out, let's start documenting everyone.
it's part of the database. I mean, it begins with genealogies, right? Because it's the gene, and it's the gene that produces the blood type. And so that database is getting more technologically advanced. And as the population grows, yeah, they want to track it down. And if you're part of the many rivals of the Royals and you want to be like the Highlander movie, there can only be one, you still need all of that information to eliminate your rivals if you win.
And look at that as part of the truth as well, because it was beheading. They had to behead them to take their, to end them and to take their power away from them as well.
Yeah. Yes. And that was what was so horrific to the Royals in the French Revolution, where you had commoners beheading royals.
Right, right. You are correct with that. I was actually thinking about the guillotine as well, thinking like all these, because there's many ways to kill people, but there was many of like beheading. There was a lot of beheading that was really focused on, like the
Yeah,
guillotine or just like
yeah,
the executioner chopping off the chopping block.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, when you look at, and you had mentioned with David earlier, when he took Goliath down with the stone, that would kill anybody. I mean, slingshots were the most deadly weapons of that time, and so David didn't need to take his head off unless that could be repaired. And the only way that you can keep them dead is to sever the head and quickly and in a way that there's no ability to let that body repair itself because now it's disconnected.
okay. And that kind of reminds me of like the Kandahar giant, where the soldiers shot, pretty much cut its head off by shooting
Yeah.
by shooting its head off, almost, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so this is really, really fascinating. I don't know, there's so many more other avenues and questions I have, but where do we go from this now? Okay, yes, I was going to bring up a thought here. So we're talking about bringing all and we were talking off air about prophetic dreams or things like that as well, and that's something else that I have a lot of. And I was given one vision, one dream, where there was a Project Bluebeam, almost a spaceship coming into our orbit, and the government then pretending it was this spaceship, but attacking everybody else to bring everybody together. And lo and behold, what do we have on the news that is just plastering all over the news? Is the Three Eye Atlas that is coming into, and I have no idea how they can spot this, because if we're talking the size of space, this is not even a needle. This is a microscopic, microscopic in the sands of the ocean or the sands of the Sahara. And they've seen this. They're able to capture this, and now they're talking about it. And that's all we hear on the news is about this comet, but it's not acting like a comet. And I'm like, okay, is this a kind of like a false flag, so to speak, a psyop, where they're going to use this to create a narrative to start bringing people together?
All of it's designed to bring people together into one.
But not in a, like, as in a manipulative way.
Yeah.
I know we should all come together
Yeah.
and stop being so divisive and decisive.
Well, one of the ways they do it to bring about the Babel syndrome is to bring the world together lest we be destroyed from the face of the earth, whether it's through alien invasion, alien attack, asteroids, nuclear war. Yeah, I mean, they've got an endless list of scare tactics that they use to try and bring down borders to cattle herd us in that sort of direction. So, um, yeah, we need to be aware of the Babel syndrome because it's that ultimate threat. Now, they're going to have to make that real with prophecies to say, convert to the true religion, as they'll come out and say, or be destroyed from the face of the earth. And here's your first warning. You've got till this date, and then this happens.
That's exactly it. Like, I've as I'm talking about this, I'm like, well, this 3-eye atlas might just be it's a scout ship and it's coming by, and okay, now we've intercepted this information, and now you have this amount of time before they're going to return with this. So everybody get together. We gotta straighten up and pull up our bootstraps and let's go. What do they say in
Yeah.
Canada now? Elbows up.
Elbows up.
Yeah,
So,
ridiculous.
so when you're describing this and you're saying, are you saying 3 eyes?
No, it is 3. So it's the number 3,
Yeah.
I, and then
Yeah.
Atlas. That is
Yeah.
what this thing
Well,
is
that's
called.
the third eye, right? Yeah, that's just imagery that they're putting it with. And also
Okay,
Atlas.
now why? Okay, I didn't even get that either. It's a 3-eye. Okay, yeah.
Well, I'll give you sort of a quick story. I was on an airplane with an adept from Freemasonry, and he saw what I was reading and said, "Hey, I'm 33rd degree Scottish Rite adept." And I said, "Well, can I ask you some questions?" And he says, "I'll tell you what. If you can tell me what my ring means, then I'll answer any question that you want." And it was a line on a blue opal and 2 dots, one on each side. And I was going, "Wow, this is crazy." But I'm reading a book about Tubal Cain, one of the patriarchs of Masonry. Finally, it hits me. And I said, "Okay." I said, "I might be all wet on this, but that line could be a staff or a cane or a rod, but I'm going to use cane. 2 dots could be 2 balls or 2 circles, but I'm going to go with balls. Does that stand for Tubal Cain?" And he said, "Yes, it does."
Wow.
But then he didn't answer any of my questions because I wanted to know the real juicy stuff. And it was like, no, I can't tell you any of that. So they use that imagery,
yeah.
and also understand that Atlas was the chief king of the Atlantean Empire, right? And a demigod and a giant. And he was trying to get a world government with his universal religion, as Critias and Plato describes. And so now you have all of this imagery sort of coming together, and that's not untypical. That's what they do. They put things in place where they know people don't understand what they're talking about, but certainly they like to label everything after their gods and their history. And the New Atlantis, as Francis Bacon, a Rosicrucian, wrote, is a period of the end time where you have one religion that works in perfect harmony with science, just as that's where the sciences came from, was the original religion of knowledge before the flood, Enochian mysticism. And so the imagery couldn't be more stark. And that Atlas was trying to create a world government. He was warring with the rest of the world.
Wow. This makes so much more sense now. Like, saying what I was saying and then kind of piecing these words together, or piecing it all together, it very much could be like a herald of the beginning of the end, almost, in a way. Like, I don't think that is the actual, that is the point, because I think, like you said, I think they have to give you some time. Like, okay, it's here. Now we know what this is. Now we need to prepare. Now we have 7 years. 7 years is too short. Maybe like 50 years or something like that. Or
And what's really scary about the Atlas imagery is those are 10 kingdoms that he reigned over. Just as you have 10 kings, 10 toes, 10 horns of the end time empire that's coming.
Yeah. Wow.
And so he'd be like an Antichrist figure. Orion would be another one out of Greek history that would be a good Antichrist figure. And the reason, and sort of how I get there in terms of an antediluvian Antichrist, is nothing is new under the sun. What was will be again. And I actually think that, and the more I research, it becomes to me more clear that the flood was an intercession to prevent the technology that the angels had provided the antediluvians to have the ability to destroy the world by fire. And then it's sort of backed up by the secret societies because they knew a disaster was coming. So they created two pillars with the location to all of their antediluvian knowledge, which, of course, is buried under the Great Pyramid. And we know what's going on underneath the Great Pyramid today with attention, because who knows what's going to come out of there. And that's where all the antediluvian knowledge is said to be located. But these two pillars, one was designed to float and survive a flood, but the other one was designed to survive an apocalypse by fire. And they didn't know which one was coming.
So they prepared
So
for
they
both.
created one of each. Yeah.
Wow. So you're saying that those are the pillars that are underneath the pyramid?
They could be, but I doubt it. There may be some fragments that would be left there. It had instructions to the knowledge that was there. So the allegory of the knowledge is, this is the knowledge that Enoch wrote down, and he also provided the knowledge to build the pyramids. So antediluvian project, not post-diluvian like the typical brainwashing would tell us. And of course, we do have actual real evidence showing the 52-degree slope on the pyramid on the stela of Narma and Menes, that clearly shows the Great Pyramid in the background, about 3000 BC, so before the flood comes, even on a secular dating. So, and certainly way before Khafra and Khufu in 23 to 2400 BC is what the wisdom of the world would like us to believe. So this place is important to both sides of the flood, and the knowledge is stored in 36,525 books on 9 vaults, is the allegory in the Polychronicon. And so we don't know what that actually means, because there's a lot of allegory for the ancient knowledge. When you hear the pearls of wisdom, that's the ancient knowledge. When you hear the golden apples in Greek mythology, that's talking about that knowledge of the apple tree in Eden. When you see the emerald tablet, that is the same bank of knowledge. The Shatia. You can go the archive of the Masons. There's probably literally 100 of these different allegories, all talking about this bank of knowledge that's been preserved for the end time.
And yeah, because these, I wonder, like, because they're talking about like those pillars that we found beneath the pyramids. Now they're saying those pillars. It's I are they leading to these chambers? Are they the chambers themselves, the pillars? I don't know.
Yeah, I think what will come out of that has the ability to change people's perceptions all around the world. I think it works in harmony with what comes out of Antarctica and then whatever else they have planned for it, because they really have to give us behavioral modification and brainwashing in ways we've not seen before to get us where they want us to be.
Yes, yeah, I agree completely. I feel like the last 5-6 years though was a good start of a certain part of that as well, because we saw some things happening that I never would have dreamed would have happened with some people. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at the last pestilence, I mean, talk about a dry run for one of the sorrows to bring about the last 7 years. So, and that's part of the overarching signs: pestilence, famine, earthquakes, wars, and rumors of wars that get stronger throughout the fig tree generation. And I think if we see some apocalyptic type of catastrophes, contrived catastrophes, predictable ones, because they're going to do some falsifying of the cause, and we're just going to see the collateral damage that comes out of it. But it's designed to move everybody into a direction, into the universal religion and the world government. But if we had, let's say, 10% of the population destroyed through a combination of those sorrows, people would think it's Armageddon. but yet it's not even the size of the seal catastrophes, which is 25% destruction. And yet, in Revelation 6, where it's describing that, God doesn't say this, but those in the world say it. This is the wrath of the Lamb. It's so horrible with this 25% destruction through wars and earthquakes and everything else that comes with it. And yet, the trumpets are going to come, which is 33% destruction. But still, that's not as bad as it gets, because the wrath bowls are filled and poured out in full measure, not partial measures. And all flesh would be destroyed unless Jesus steps in, from a biblical perspective on how it happens. Now, in the polytheist one, the whole world does burn out, but then they restart it through a new recreation and the phoenix rising out of the ashes. And Lord Maitreya is the one, or Shiva is the one that is going to cause this to happen. It's the destroyer god. We would understand that biblically as Abaddon or Apollyon, and or Azazel that comes up out of the pit prison just before the midpoint of the last 7 years. That is going to bring all of this about. And Lord Maitreya, when you take that word Mitra back to Indo-Aryan, the language of the giants, it means a bond or a covenant. So now you understand why, from a polytheist side, that the Antichrist, as we would know it, is going to be called Lord Maitreya, because he's going to negotiate this covenant that brings the world together and then rule over the world. And if you want to make another connection to Maitreya, to Azazel through Abaddon and Apollyon, go to the Knights Templar, who worship Azazel, which is the most common name that we would use for the one who provided all of the knowledge, most of the knowledge from the fallen angels. And he's the one that's hung upside down with the pearls of wisdom and this Zed rope in Roslyn Chapel, and hung upside down. And the name that the Templars used for the god that they worship was Baphomet. Well, that means Father Mitra.
Oh, geez. It just kind of circles right back, it comes right back full circle.
Yeah. And the Templars were created to create the new Babylon within the Roman Catholic Church. And that after they were taken down, then that was replaced by the New Templars, which are the Jesuits.
Okay. Yeah, and everybody knows the Jesuits as well. Now,
yeah.
Gary, I got a question here. I know I don't want to keep you too much longer. I love this conversation. I can talk for hours with you because you're a wealth of knowledge. But when you said Babylon will fall again, okay?
Yes.
Do you know where the second Babylon is?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you could make a good case that it's actual Babylon in the old Empire of Babylon.
Okay.
I think what's being used here is allegory.
Yeah.
And so the word...
I do as well, too, yes.
Babylon in the New Testament, it's not used a lot, but it's used in where Peter is writing from, which is the city of Rome, but he says Babylon. And then Babylon is used in the book of Revelation for this universal religion and geopolitical organization, an economic organization, and a city, because it's also a city. It's called a city 9 times in the book of Revelation. You take that back to its meaning, and its root word, it comes from the Hebrew word Babel. Just as Nimrod ruled over Babel and was an Antichrist type figure. So it's the religion of Babel. It's a mystical religion. And that is also understood as an allegory for Rome, where the seat of idolatry is going to sit and sat on the 7 ancient hills of Rome in the time of the Roman Empire and before, and with the Proto-Romans, Proto-Latins, the Etruscans who lived there before. And so the 7 hills were founded by Romulus and Remus, sons of Ares or Mars, giants, and they made their capital at the 7 mountains, and Palatine Hill was sort of the main religious center, not the capital of the city, but the main religious center for the Sibylline prophecies. And then that was later brought back in the time of Hannibal and reinstated so they could get protection from Hannibal and help guide the Roman Empire. And the sister branch was on Vaticanus Hill, which is outside the old city of Rome, but was a branch of the Sibylline prophecies. So where do I think it is? This is the ancient seat of Satan. This is the ancient seat of idolatry that the woman of Babylon, the queen of heaven, is going to be sitting on, just as in Zechariah 5, two female angels are taking the woman in the basket to put her in Shinar um, in Babylon to put in place, holding the measures for the system that she's going to introduce. That's also described in Revelation 6. That happens before Zechariah 6, which is the same imagery of the four horsemen, the four angels, the four spirits of prophecy that are used to bring about cataclysmic events in not only the end time, but before.
So just to finalize this, Babylon is in Rome, but possibly in Rome, possibly the Vatican.
No, I don't think in the Vatican.
Okay.
I think there's going to be a split.
I was like
leaning
towards that. I'm like, oh my gosh, could it be the Vatican? But okay.
So I think you're going to see a conservative movement move away from the Mary apparitions, which is basically a Catholic deception, in my opinion, as a queen of heaven. And she's described as the woman of Revelation 12, just as Hathor is described of that with visions around the world. Inanna, same type of vision. I think this is that queen of heaven that is coming back, and the mother goddess aspect to the old polytheist religion. And Cybele would be the Roman version. And also a queen of heaven. And so what I think happens is the conservative side will break away from the side that's being taken over by polytheism and going with these images of Mary and this Babylon religion. So I think, who knows? With the persecution that will go to all who stand against Babylon, you could see the Vatican taken over by Babylon and the old church wiped out and removed. But I think initially you'll see two different locations. So keep in mind the Septimonium, which is the ancient seven hills and the religion of the Septimonian in mind. People can look at the seven hills as you could also look at Constantinople as having seven hills, and it was also a capital of the Eastern Empire of Rome as well. Those would be the two candidates as it fits with Christian prophecy in terms of coming out of the book of Revelation. I just look at Rome as being recognized with the famous hills of Romulus and Remus and the bloodlines that are produced downstream for the senators, the 100 senator families. And just look at that as a more probable location.
Okay. Fantastic. Gary, before we come to an end here, if you were to give anybody, a Christian or non-Christian, anybody advice, in preparation or just in life in general, what would you be telling them?
Well, the first thing I would suggest is learn more, not only of the Bible, but history. And so you can have a better understanding of how the world works. Move away from standard preconceived conclusion prophecy systems because they will alter and add to scripture to justify their preconceived conclusion. And a lot of them are based around the timing of the rapture. And the rapture is a very, very important event, but it's one event of many. Important to the church, yes, but and the way you begin with learning more about prophecy, you got to start with reading the whole Bible and then go to what Jesus said in Matthew 24. and Mark 13, Luke 17, and 21. Those are the main ones for the end time events. And he gives the fig tree generation, a specific generation. He gives a sequence of events. Now, everybody who uses a preconceived conclusion approach to prophecy will try and redefine what Jesus said because it doesn't fit, right? They have to. And so what I would encourage you to do is to put everything around what Jesus said, what all the prophets said, not around the wisdom of the world, but around what Jesus said. And he gives you a bit of an order to do it with. So at the midpoint of the last 7 years, when all the events are going to take place, heaven and earth will pass away, but his words will never pass away, is the abomination. Abomination hasn't happened yet when the Antichrist creates it. And he instructs us to read about Daniel. Daniel 2, Daniel 7, Daniel 8, Daniel 9, 11, and 12. It all has the abomination in it. And you'll learn about the events both before and after the abomination. And you'll learn, and you put all of that onto Jesus's template. And what I would do just before you do that, though, is take all the additional details from Mark 13, Luke 17, and 21 that are what are not in Matthew 24. So just take the extra details, put that on to the Matthew 24 template because it's more complete, but you get some extra details on those other ones to lay in, and it fits in perfectly. And of course, all of the prophecies, including Antichrist's rise, beginning in Daniel 11:31 to 11:21 to 30, to the time of the abomination, that's Antichrist rising, just as he rises amongst the 10 kings. So lay that over. Now you're ready to go to Revelation. And then if you take, for the last 7 years, keep the churches separate. There are some unfulfilled prophecies there that will be helpful, but to get the chronology is lay Revelation 6 through Revelation 14:6 before the abomination, and in that sequence of events. And from Matthew 24:7 to Matthew 24:20. And then what you get from 14:7 on, you start with the judgment of God for the last 3.5 years. And then you get the major events and sequence of the last 3.5 years. You get the details of those events following in Revelation 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19. Okay. And all of those go after the abomination that Jesus lays out, and starting in Matthew 24:21 with the great tribulation not seen since creation, which is different than the tribulation of the saints before the abomination. That's how you start with prophecy. And once you have that template and you buy into it, and you probably need to do Revelation to buy into it, you can put any other prophecy in the New Testament, any other prophecy in the Old Testament in, and it will fit perfectly.
Wow. Okay.
But nobody wants you to know that. So they're going to call me a heretic. They'll call you a heretic if you do it. But it's such blasphemy to put everything around what the spirit of prophecy says, the word of God. It's amazing.
I love it. I love it, Gary. Thank you again so much. Like, this has been, I thoroughly enjoyed this, and this is, your wealth of information, and I always want you to come back, and which of course I'll look into something again, maybe 8 or 9 months down the road again to have you back. But I want to say thank you one last time. Where can everybody find you?
The best way to get a hold of me is through my website. That's the Genesis6conspiracy.com, the number 6conspiracy.com. On the website, there's a contact the author icon. I'm still running about 3 months behind on emails, but I will get back to you. So if you're looking for some additional information or have a question, if you're patient, I will get back to you. I do enjoy doing the emails, and I do have to find a way to catch up to get that response down. If you're interested in some of the things that I'm saying and want to know what my books are all about, I have a generous excerpt of all 98 chapters of book 1 on the website, and also all 84 chapters of book 2. And so if you wanted to get a copy, if the book interested you, or you wanted to support me, you can go to the Buy Now page to get a signed copy directly from me. And I have 3 pages there. There's a buy page 1, buy page 2, and buy page 3. Book 1 is page 1, book 2 is page 2. The bundle and get the discount is page 3. And if you wanted to buy multiple copies, let's say 5 of book 1, there's discounts on that for each of those pages as well for the books. And I also have a direct link over to barnesandnoble.com from the website, amazon.com, amazon.ca. So that's the fastest, easiest way to get a hold of a printed copy. And if you wanted a digital version, I have a link on the buy pages to Amazon for both books and Kindle. And I think the last time, I did a show, I was working on book 2 for the Audible. We have both books up on Audible now on Amazon, and you have links directly over there from the website as well. And I'm absolutely impressed, let's put it that way, at how well Audible version has gone over. But the weak side I know, because a lot of people want to hear it, but what you don't get with the Audible version is the endnotes. So you'll have to get one of the other two if you want to know the sources where some of the stuff is coming from.
Which I think is extremely important is, it's fantastic that you're putting it all together, but also checking into the sources. I think that's part of our homework that we become lazy and we just stop doing. We're just like, okay, I'll just take your word for it.
Yeah.
No, what you're saying is look into this all, question it, question everything, and look deeper, look for yourself, find those answers yourself.
Yeah, and in book 2, if you want to know a little bit more on the 7 hills and the Sibylline prophecies, that's in book 2. If you want to know a little bit more of the technology of the beast system and the Terraform, that's in book 2. If you want a little bit more on how I do my approach, that's in, you're going to be told how I do that in the introduction when I get into the prophecy side. You're going to get a fairly good general sequence of events backed up with scripture to provide that. But what you're also going to get in book 1 is more information you can imagine possible on giants in the Old Testament.
Fantastic. Gary, thank you again so much for making the time to come on. I really appreciated it.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. I want to say thank you again to Gary. He's always a wealth of knowledge. And, he left us with a lot of homework to do. So at the very end there, he started telling us all the scriptures to be reading. And, it's the key. It is the key. So you have your homework to do. I have mine. We need to follow through and do that. Check into it all yourself. And as he said, question everything. Absolutely question everything. Look deeper. There are so many more answers out there, and the truth is there for you. But a lot of times the truth is inverted. Okay. So what we're being presented in Hollywood a lot of times is an inversion of what is the real truth. So make sure you guys just keep questioning and look deeper. Such as myself, I'm even missing it, like 3-eye atlas, the third eye. Wow. Or the gowns we're wearing when we are graduating. Just overlooking a lot of these things, and we got to stop overlooking them. I'm doing it as well. But until next time, everyone, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have, make sure you guys like, subscribe, give the show a review. I'd really appreciate that. And until next time, keep your curiosity wandering, keep the light lit, and always find your way home.
Beneath the stars where shadows grow, the Nephilim's echoes whisper low. Bigfoot roams through the forest deep, and Dogman prowls where the brave won't sleep. Across lost history we wander wide, seeking the truth that time tried to hide. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit, through the darkness don't ever quit. In the codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. UFOs streak through the velvet skies, aliens watch with unblinking eyes. The paranormal hums where silence breaks, In the void of secrets, a lantern wakes. Through hidden realms and stories untold, the cold gas flame is the light to hold. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit. Through the darkness, don't ever quit. In the codex, the mysteries come and always find your way back home. UFOs streak through the velvet skies. Aliens watch with unblinking eyes. The paranormal hums where silence breaks. In the void of secrets, a lantern wakes. Through hidden realms and stories untold, the cold gas flame is a light to hold. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit. Through the darkness, don't ever quit. In the codex, the mysteries come and always find your way back home. Legends rise from the earth's deep core, a lost legacy we can't ignore. With every step, the veil grows thin, revealing worlds where the strange begins. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit. Through the darkness, don't ever quit. In the codex, the mysteries come and always